My name is Alex, and I am the voice of reason, and I am sitting here with the voice of this brand new film, Heart of a Servant, the Father Flanagan story. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for sitting with me today. You have taken the world by storm with The Chosen. You brought it to the big screen with Jesus Revolution, and now you're part of this film. Now, in the past couple of years, we have seen that this type of art, Christian art, is having a bit of a resurgence in the mainstream world. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that the general public is coming back to this kind of art?
Well, I think people are interested in compelling stories, and the kinds of stories I like to tell are first and foremost rooted in quality. And if I'm going to participate in them, then there's something that is compelling about the story itself that speaks to me. Like, for instance, in Heart of a Servant, Father Flanagan's story, his witness to these generations of children as essentially the face of Christ and his ministry and how he treated them and took care of them, that spoke to me personally. And then when they sent me the documentary to consider being the narrator for it, I was struck by the quality of the documentary. And so I think if we're going to see more of these kinds of stories being told, or more shows like The Chosen, people have to focus on quality. And I think with filmmaking that fell into the more niche faith-based filmmaking previously in years past, the focus, the primary focus and the priority was on the message, but sort of at the expense of the writing, sometimes the acting or the direction. And when you're not using the best possible resources to tell a great story, or a story that contains, elements of the greatest story ever told, or elements of the faith, or elements of the truth of the gospel, if you don't have those, if you don't have the quality side of the filmmaking process nailed down and completely at the top of your game, you won't get the audience to come along with you, or you'll get a select audience that maybe they don't care about quality, but then you're now limiting and narrowing your potential audience and the people that you maybe want to have this message told to. They're never going to hear it because the quality is substandard. So God deserves the highest standard. And so that's what any of us working in filmmaking and television that tells these kinds of stories about Christ, or about men like Father Flanagan doing Christ's work, the quality can't be compromised at all.
Do you think that because we've seen a lot of success with The Chosen, Jesus Revolution, a movie like Father Stew, do you think that that's inspiring more directors, writers, producers, and actors to dive into these kinds of real-life stories? Do you think that you're setting a trend?
I hope we're inspiring people to tell more of these kinds of stories. I think there are so many stories that haven't been told yet, but I think as long as filmmakers and artists are committed to telling these stories with the quality, the production quality they deserve, then it will continue to serve an audience that has been for many, many years completely underserved.
Right, correct. And what makes Father Flanagan's story so special? Why was it so important that we get this particular story out to the world? What is it about him specifically?
He was a warrior. Like, if you look at what he did in the early part of the 20th century, after the Depression and before and through the Second World War, the guy basically went up all of the societal norms and expectations about what it meant to serve people, serve children, and the fact that there was still segregation, and you couldn't combine children of different races and faiths, because it kind of went against, Jim Crow laws that were in place at the time. It went against the societal norms. He didn't care. He's like, well, no, these kids need love. Like, he didn't see color. He didn't see, any of the things that separated people at the time. He just saw that these kids were in need, that they're at a point in their lives where they needed to be loved on in order for their lives to go a different direction, a positive direction versus the negative direction that they were trending when he picked them up, when he found them, when he started this first boys' home. And people didn't like that, and they tried to prevent him from doing what he needed to do. And so what did he do? He went and he bought a bunch of land here in Nebraska and started his own home and started his own town, basically, and got his own zip code. Like, who does that? Right. I mean, and he changed thousands and thousands of lives because of his willingness to just get his hands dirty, his willingness to be completely selfless, to put himself second to the needs of these children, and to make sure that they had a warm bed and food to eat and clothes on their backs. And he did that oftentimes, at the expense of himself and his own health, which, he suffered ill health for many, many years from the time he was a kid himself. And so seeing a person like that, knowing that a guy like this existed then, and that the issue of children needing guidance and structure now, especially in the digital age, when kids are bombarded by, negative social media imagery and messaging, and suicide rates for children are elevated. Like, kids need to be guided and instructed with the love and mercy and compassion that Father Flanagan possessed.
If you could talk to Father Flanagan today, what would you say to him, and what do you think that he would have to say about today?
I'd ask him, how can I help somebody in my position? What do you need me to do? And just take his advice and try to do what I think he'd want me to do, or try to do what he would need me to do to help kids. And I'm doing some things, before I discovered him. I've started down that road myself with a charity that I've been working with for the last several years, and helping needy children and kids that can't fend for themselves. And to discover his story here, almost 100 years ago, and just how grand the story was. I mean, it got to the level of presidents. If you go take the tour, you may have taken the tour earlier.
I sure did, yes.
It's got a book autographed by John Kennedy, President Kennedy. Like, he knew these presidents. Like, if there was a speed dial at the time, they would have been on his speed dial, Like, the guy was just he was a rock star for Jesus. And like what more could I aspire to than just serving God in a way that has a global impact?
Do you think that to do what he did, do you think that it would be easier today to do what he did, or harder today, and why?
I think today has its own challenges. I mean, it would be different, but I think part of why we don't have the same challenges today as he did is because he helped overcome them. He helped, usher in this idea through his example of Boys Town that integration is possible and necessary in order to be children in a society that puts God first. And a successful and flourishing society doesn't have those kinds of limitations. And he didn't see those limitations, which he just saw children that needed help, and he helped them. And I think if we were to adopt more of that even today, like kids need help. Let's just love on them and show them who God is, and how, give them a sense of identity and faith, not just in culture, but in faith. Everything was grounded and rooted in the gospel.
If there was one thing, if somebody goes to see this film and they become inspired and they want to pick up that baton and they want to carry it and they want to do what he did. If there was one thing that any of us or all of us could do to continue his work, what would that one thing be? What's the most pressing, most immediate thing that we need to do?
I just say, try to be a witness of Christ to everyone you meet. Try to forgive more. Try to let go of your complaints and your dissatisfactions with some of the constructs that this life and our current society impose upon us, and focus on loving each other the way God loved us, the way he loved these kids, and by serving. I mean, he is the epitome. The film is called Heart of a Servant for a reason. I think that's the thing. If I were to truncate that into a concise sentence, it would be to adopt the heart of a servant.
Be a servant.
Be a servant.
Jonathan Roumie, thank you so much for all of your wonderful work.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Congratulations on this movie. God bless you in everything that you do.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you
bless
so
you.
much. God bless.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Likewise.